Hi everybody, how are you doing? Welcome to today's live stream. My name is Alex and I'm one of the product trainers at Capture One. So today it's going to be all about styles. We're going to be combining them with other tools for maximum workflow efficiency. Say also hi to my colleague David. He's around in the chat and he will be helping me moderate and get some questions. So today's session is pretty packed, so I'm not going to be taking a lot of questions today unless they're very, very relevant to what we're talking about. But don't worry because I'll leave some time in the end and the others will be taken by David. Okay, so let's do some logistics first. So for those of you watching from Big Marker, this is a Q&A tab. Please make sure to post your questions in there instead of the chat to make sure that we can get to all of them. And in case that you just want to focus on the live stream and not be bothered by the chat, then you can also hide it by tapping on that button there. Oh, another extra thing for today, for those of you who are in Big Marker, there is a poll. We are trying out a new schedule for webinars, so we would like to know where you are joining from. So if you can, just go in there and give us your answer, and that would help us so much. So, okay, with that out of the way, we can get started. Let's just jump ahead and share my screen. So this is some of the photos that I prepared for today's session. We'll be starting with some portraits, and then towards the end, we'll also be working with some landscapes to make sure that we cater to everyone out there. Okay, I wanted to start with some basics. The first thing that I wanted to cover is what is a style actually, and what is the difference between a style and a preset. We get this question a lot, so I want to make sure to address that one first. Okay, so what we call in Capture One a style is some preset adjustments that include multiple tools, okay? So it's not restricted to one single tool. It can include two or as many as you like, and this is what we're going to be focusing on today. But there's also presets in Capture One, and what we call a preset in Capture One is actually, well, preset adjustments, but just for one specific tool. I will also be showing you how to save them and how to use them. They can be very powerful, and there is actually many instances in which you would maybe prefer to have just one preset from one specific tool so that you can combine them with different adjustments. We'll get to that in a second. I just wanted to get that out of the way. And now we can start working with our images here. So here I have a batch of images from the same portrait session. So if you see, let's go into the grid view. I have 25 images, out of which only one is edited, which is this one that I have right here. So let's just go into our adjustment panel and let's do before and after to see what's going on here. So let's actually do the split view slider so that you can all see better. So before, this is like the raw file itself, and this is after. So some minor adjustments, some color grading, so on and so on. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. So we have different layers, as you can see. Now just focusing on the image layer, which was previously called background, and let's see what we have. It's some actually very simple adjustments. So we just have a Lumar curve for some extra contrast. We have some highlight and especially shadow recovery. And then we have some things going on with the color. So I have a color balance adjustments where I'm just cooling down the shadows a little bit. And here on the color editor, I'm just desaturating a little bit on the red. Personally, I like to go for a more desaturated tone on the skin. I don't like really colorful skin tones, so I tend to do this. It doesn't always work, but it does do the trick for me like 90% of the times. So this is a pretty standard adjustment. So that's on my image layer. And then I have some other things going on here. So I'm just going to show you the different layers here. So I have a style brush layer. We'll be covering what that is in a little bit with a little mask over here. Then we have a mask for the eyes, and then we have a different mask for the hand. So this is the adjustments that I'm going to copy and apply to the different images as a style. The thing is that because these three different layers have specific masks that are assigned to specific pixels, like I've been just brushing them in, right? So when you do that, the fact is that you cannot put these layers into a style because it wouldn't make a lot of sense, because then you would just have like, I don't know, two random points in an image where the model is in a different position, and then you would just get like two highlights that wouldn't make any sense. So to avoid this, Capture One actually doesn't allow you to save these layers into a style. So if you're trying to save a style and you see that some layers are blocked, that's completely normal, okay? Don't worry about it. Okay, so Let's do this. So now these are our adjustments, and what we want, the next thing we want to do now is save it as a style. So how do we do that? We have a specific tab for styles. So if we go up here, we can see all of our styles and presets. So we see custom styles, built-in styles, and then also custom and built-in presets. What we want to save now is a style, and the way to do it is just from the main tool, styles and presets, just go to the three-dot icon, click, and you click on Save Custom Style. Now, once you do that, you're going to get this pop-up window. Just going to make it a little bit bigger. And here you're going to get a highlight of everything that is adjusted, basically. And then you can decide what you want to save within this style or not. Why does it make a lot of sense? Because there's some specific adjustments that you normally don't want to save into a style. So, for example, the one that I'm leaving out of this one is the crop. Because if I'm just saving this as a preset to apply to the different images, I obviously want to check the crop case by case. I don't want just like a random crop applied on all my images. So I'm making sure to deselect this one. Now there's other things that normally I would unclick. One of them would be the white balance, but in this case I'm going to leave it on. The reason behind that is that this is a batch of images from the same session, same models, same lighting circumstances, so I do want the white balance applied. But in some other instances, you may want to build a style that is as versatile as possible, that you can use in different circumstances or in different sessions. So in that case, I would recommend you to also get rid of the white balance as well as the exposure, which we don't have any adjustments here, so that's fine. Now we go into the layers, as I said before. Note that it's blocked and you cannot actually save the layers within this style. So the rest of the adjustments I'm saving, like the highlights, the shadows, the curves, and the color adjustments. So I'm just going to click on save. Actually, I already saved this style from the morning session, so I'm not going to do it again, but you would just call it something that you would remember. Try to think of a name that you will remember in the future, because this may sound really silly, but they can get too stuck, and then you can get to have a lot of styles and presets. So try to always name them something that you will know to remember. Okay, then we will click on save. But as I said before, I already did this, so I'm not going to do that. Now, if we take a look at my custom styles, you can see actually here that this is the style that we just saved. And now the only thing that I have to do is select all of the images. So that's going to be Command A. Now that will select all of the images. I'm going to make sure to leave this one out because that one's already been adjusted. So that's not what we want to do. And then if we hover over the different styles, we can see that it will show us a preview. In this case, I'm just going to click on Thalia 1, which is the style that we want to apply for these. And let's see what happens. So all the images have already been adjusted. So if I go through these, then you can see that all of the adjustments that were into the style have been applied to all of our images here. Okay, that's great. So now we have this consistency across the batch. And it can also be the case that we want to say, for example, the white balance, because then it may be a versatile thing that we want to apply in other images. So if we want to save the color balance separately as a preset, remember a preset that it's only preset adjustments from one specific tool, then we would do this not from the styles panel, but actually from within the tool that we want to save as a preset. So in this case, I'm choosing the color balance. You can see that the only thing going on here is the shadows. And the way to do this is just go to the icon that it's like the 3 lines. So just click on there and click on Save Custom Preset. As you can see here, Capture One already comes with some really interesting pre-made presets, which some of them are really cool. So if you didn't know them, I recommend you take a look at them because I personally really like them. So I'm gonna go Save Custom Preset, and same as before, in this case, it's just this one tool that we want to save. So obviously we need to keep it ticked. So we click Save, and then we would call it something like Cool Shadows, for example. Again, I already saved this, so I will not do it again, but just so you know, this is how it's done. And then this is a really versatile preset actually that we can apply to any sort of session. So that's so you know, and that's the difference between styles and presets, and this is how you save them and apply them. All right, so I also wanted to show you a tool that is not, before we move on to the next batch of photos. And this one is not necessarily related to styles, but I think it's very powerful for batch editing. So this is why I still wanted to show you this tool within this session. So this is one of the most unknown and underrated tools in Capture One, in my opinion. It's called Speed Edit, and it's so powerful for when you're editing batches like this one that we have here. So it's all based on some keyboard shortcuts. It's kind of hidden within the interface, so maybe this is why it's not super popular, but let's see what's going on. So if you want to get to see the keyboard shortcuts that I'm talking about, just go to the main menu, Edit Keyboard Shortcuts, and then here we have the Speed Edit keys. So this is what we're looking for. So the logic of this tool is that it links the main tools in Capture One with the main keys in the QWERTY keyboard, so that each slider has one key assigned. So for example, the thing that I'm going to do now is I'm going to tweak the Kelvin and the tint in a synchronization for the whole batch of photos. So I just need to remember that Kelvin is 1 and tint is the key number 2. And then if I remember that, I'm actually going to hide the tools panels in the browser so that you can see better what's going on. So now we said that Kelvin is 1, right? So if I press and hold the 1 key, then we'll get the slider underneath all of the photos, and then we go right. That's going to tweak the white balance towards the warmer side. If I go to the left, that's going to tweak it toward the cooler side. So that's really interesting. Say that, I'm just going to reset to what it was before. So this is what it was before, and say that I just go around, have a coffee, clear my site, and I come back to the computer and I think, oh, I don't know what I was thinking about, this is probably too cold, and I just want to make everything slightly warmer. So I just need to do it like that. And similarly with the tint, if I want to tweak things towards the magenta or the green side of things, I just have to do it like that. And I think that works pretty well, actually. So this is how you kind of fine tweak the batch of photos after you've applied the style. So Speed Edit, really nice tool. We'll probably do more of it in the future. If you feel like you would like to get to know it more, you can always leave your comments and your suggestions on the chat, and we'll be sure to take a look at those. So the main thing, even before using Speed Edit or even a style sometimes, is that we want to get the photos as consistent as possible if they're part of the same batch, and I will be showing you some tips today so that you can do that. Okay, so we covered what's a style, what's a preset, how to save them, how to apply them, and let's move on to some other more complex stuff. So to do that, I'm going to change to a different album. Actually, it's part of the same session, but it's a different look, and I really like this example to show you the next part. So basically the baseline is the same. This is the batch of photos. In this case, it's a batch of 11, out of which only this one has been adjusted. So again, let's take a look at what's going on here. So see before and after. This is before, this is after. I went for a warmer look, a little bit desaturated, and washed out blacks, which is something that I really like for this sort of studio portraits. And again, here I have different layers going on. So maybe let's just unclick them and let's just see what's going on in each of the layers. Okay, so this is my image layer, my background layer in this case. As you can see, there's actually not much going on here. If anything at all, it's just like an RGB curve. So that's what's going on here, not much. Then I have a color grading layer, which if we go into the mask, you can see that it's actually a full mask, meaning that it covers all of the image and it will apply the adjustments in every part of the image. Why is this important? Because these layers can actually be saved into the styles. Same as we couldn't save the brushing layers, this one can be saved into a style, and it's actually very interesting to do it because if I keep my color grading on a separate layer, I can save it with a different kind of opacity, and then it helps me be more flexible, and it helps me when I apply this style to another set of images or a completely different session, it allows me to have more control over the color grading, which is good for today, but maybe a little bit overdone for other images. So this is the thing. Okay, let's move on. So here we have a brightness layer. So yeah, this is my mask, which you can see it's super subtle. I made this with a style brush. I'll be covering that in just a second. Here we have some light on the eyes. Here we have some adjustments to the highlights in the arms. And here what we have, it's the same sort of thing going on here on the neck. So this is what's going on. So the things that I'm going to be able to save as a style is the image layer, the color grading layer because it's full, and all of this I cannot save. But what if you want to apply specific adjustments to a specific part of the image, which normally when we talk about portraits tend to be the subject and the background. So how can you automate that within a style? And it's actually possible to do that since the last release of Capture One 16.3 that was a little bit over a month ago. And it's been fantastic because now not only we can use AI masking selection for subject, background, and different objects, but we can also save that selection and the adjustments that we want to do with it within a style, which is super powerful, as you can see here. So say, for example, that this is just fine, so I'm happy with my adjustments, but the only thing I want to do now is I want to darken the background just a little bit. So the easiest way to do that is from within here, the layer and masks panel, I'm just going to click on background. So Capture One is going to make a background layer for me. As you can see, super speedy. So if I press M, that's the background layer that Capture One generated, and you can see that it's pretty accurate. And even if we move a little bit closer towards the complicated sides, like these hairs over here, and if we go into the grayscale masks, which is, if you didn't know, you can do this in Capture One, you can display a grayscale mask with option M. It's actually like a super soft mask. It's really accurate and it's really smooth on the sides, and that's on purpose because the main thing when we are doing mask, especially if we're doing like a background or subject mask, is we want to keep things subtle and we want to keep things natural. So even if the mask is very good, if I do this too dramatically, it's going to start appearing weird. Not because the mask is wrong per se, but because somehow our brains know that this lighting doesn't match the background, if you know what I mean. So it's gonna start to appear a little bit weird. So even if the mask is great, we wanna make sure to keep things credible and natural. So in this case, I'm gonna go for -5 maybe. Could be a little bit more, but I'm not too bothered here. So I just want to darken the background a little bit so that the model stands out, sorry. So that's what I'm gonna do. So now I created my background mask and I just need to save the style, and I need to make sure that I'm saving the background layer. So again, going back to my styles panel, I'm going to go on the 3 dots, again, save custom style. And here, again, we have the different options. So in this case, we've got to make sure that we are clicking on saving the background mask. The color grading mask, which is the full mask, is already there. Exposure is sort of the same logic that I explained before. So because this is a style that I'm just going to be using for this particular session and this particular model and look, I'm going to keep it on. But if I wanted to save this style for different purposes or different sessions, then we should make sure to unclick it. And then the other things, same thing with the white balance. I'm going to keep it for this case. And the thing that I definitely want not to keep is the crop. Excuse me. So I'm going to click on save. And again, we should give it a name. I would name it Thelia 2. As you can see, it already did that. So I'm not going to do that again. But that would be the logic. Okay, so now the style is saved. And again, the other thing that I need to do is select all of the images, Command A. I'm going to leave this one out because this one has already been adjusted. And again, we can just use this. So it's taking a little bit longer now to apply the style because it's recalculating the background mask for each one of the images. So the AI is working to recognize the subject in each of the images and apply the -5 brightness just to the background, not to the whole image. This is why it's taking a little bit longer, but still you can see that it's pretty snappy. So Now that it's been applied, let's go to our adjustments and let's take a look at the background masks maybe. So let's go to this, let's start here for example. So let's select the background mask, let's do M and let's see what's going on. So that's pretty good. Again here, let's do that. That was pretty accurate. That's also pretty good. You can see that it missed some part here. It missed some part here as well. So I'm going to show you how to do this in the case that, you know, it's not infallible. Sometimes it can miss some part, but it's actually really easy to make up for it. So the only thing you need to do is make sure to use your AI brush to add the selected part to the image. So I'm just going to zoom in 100% to make sure that the AI is focusing on the part of the image that I want to add to the mask. So now that it's read this part of the image, I just need to click on this part and on this tiny part here, and that's actually added to the global mask. Again, here we have some part that is missing. So if we want to include that, we just grab the AI brush again. Once that we've moved around the image, it will have to like sort of recalculate the mask, but it doesn't take a long time. And the thing here is that if I try to click here, it's going to get a little bit confused and it's going to try to get some other stuff within the mask. And if we don't want that, which we obviously don't want in this case, the only thing I need to do is just like drag and drop and create some sort of rectangle that will help the AI see what part of the image needs to be there actually. So now that that is done, it's probably a good idea to refine the mask. So let's just choose refine mask. And that's like basically readapting the edges to make it as accurate as possible. And then we hit apply and that's our perfect mask right there. And yeah, we could keep reviewing. In this case also lacked a lot of things. In this case where the mistake was not like leaving parts out but actually leaving parts in, we can do the same logic but with the AI eraser, which we also have here. Excuse me. So I'm just clicking out the parts that I don't want within my mask. And that's going to help me get rid of those. And now we have a good mask again. Okay, so I'm going to choose this image just to take things a little bit further and introduce the new tool that I wanted to talk to you about. So in this case, it actually happened the same thing. So I'm just going to fix this just as I did before. So one click here, and then just like a square here. And now I'm just refining. And that's how we get it done. Okay, now we have a perfect background mask and the background is darker everywhere. Okay, so let's continue working on this image for a little bit. So this is one of my client selections. So you can see that this is a yellow tag as opposed to the red tag. So that's basically my code for client selection. So I'm going to keep working on this one a little bit more and I'm going to give it a little bit more love. So the first thing I want to do actually before moving any further, I just want to crop it. And I'm going to use a tighter crop here. Okay, so yeah, I think that works. Okay, so we have a good overall setting. So we have good color, we have a good background, everything's nice, but there is actually a couple of things that bother me and they can easily be fixed with local adjustments. There's different ways to do local adjustments in Capture One, but one of my favorites is this one here called style brushes. So the logic of the style brushes is that you can use the built-in brushes or you can also save your own. And these brushes, they work in a really smart way because you basically just pick any of these and it's going to create a new layer that is going to be called exactly like your brush. And it's going to give you the brushing tool that you need with the adjustments that you need just to make that happen. Today I'm going to be working only with the built-in styles. So basically we have three sections. We have the color styles, that is like warmer, cooler, more or less saturation. We have the enhancements that do a variety of things, like for example, adding clarity, deepening the sky. If you're working with landscapes, Iris Enhance is one that I like a lot. And these are the things that you can see here. And then we have the third category, which is light and contrast, including very useful brushes like dodging and burning, removing haze, recovering highlights, and all that sort of thing. And I really like to use these for my local adjustments for my selected pictures. So this is a thing that cannot be like automated within a batch. So this is a thing that you start using when like here you already have a selection and you already know that this is the final photo that you want to work on and you want to give it some extra love. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the iris and hands brush. So just moving a little bit closer and let's see what it does. So, oh sorry, let's just grab that again. Iris and hands. Okay, so that you can see that it already changed the size of the brush. And if I right click to show you the brush settings, you can see that the opacity is set up to 100%, but the flow is set up to 8%. And that's very interesting because the way this is going to work is this is going to start creating a very soft, subtle mask. So let's see what I mean by that. I'm actually going to make it a little bit smaller. To change the brush settings size, you can also right click and just change the slider here, or the way I prefer to do it is with the shortcut keys. So pressing and holding Control and Option, and then dragging right and left, that will give you a size change. And if you go up and down, that will give you a hardness change. So in this case, just keeping things softer, and then I'm just doing a couple of brush strokes on the eyes. So it seems like nothing is happening, but if we turn on and off the layer again, so we turn it off and then on, we can see that it's actually having an impact. And if I show you the mask, which is M, you can see that a mask is being created that is ever so subtle, ever so soft, but it's actually giving a very good result. And I really like to work with this because even if the mask is not perfect, it's just gonna work out really great. So let's go back to normal zoom and let's see like that. So before, after, it's actually giving so much more life to the eyes and the face of the model. If we ever feel that we went a little bit further away, we can do an opacity change. So again, balance it out between 100 and whatever. So maybe 90% works better in this case. So that's how I'm gonna keep it. All right, so that was the first adjustment that I want to do. Let's just see what else the style brush can offer to us. So the next thing that is kind of bothering me is this hotspots here on the arm, these highlights, and I want to take them down a notch because they are taking too much attention, I think. So I'm going to choose in this case the highlights recover brush and changing the size again just to make it bigger. And now just again a couple of brush strokes. I'm not even concerned if my mask is going all over the place because this is like such a specific adjustment, so recovering highlights, that is not going to affect any other part of the picture. Like this is black, this is not going to have this adjustment here. If we go down to the adjustments, you can actually see what's doing. That's not going to have any impact on the t-shirt that is black. So that's before and that's after. And again, we can control the opacity and leave it at any point we like. In this case, I'm going to leave it at 100%. Couple more things that I wanted to do. So I want to do a little bit of burning, and I'm not going to do the dodging, but what I do want to do is I want to apply a little bit of extra brightness to the bright side of the face, just to create a little bit more of a dynamic contrast. So again, just choose brightness plus, and just like a couple brush strokes, and that's gonna allow me to have a little bit more light on this side of the face. Again, super messy mask, not concerned at all. So that's a part of it. And then I'm going to choose the burning brush, which is this one here. And I'm going to just try to follow the natural lines of where the shadows are being cast. Maybe just like here a bit and like here a bit. Really random mask, but it does work. So this is before, this is after. Maybe I went a little bit over the side here. If that ever happens, we can just grab the eraser and get rid of the part of the mask that we don't need. And I think that's looking better now. Okay, so this is the style brushes. As I said, really powerful tool, really intuitive to use, and even more if you are working with a Wacom tablet. Like, I always like to edit my photos with a pen, not only because it's more precise, but also because it's more enjoyable. And it really helped me with my process of editing and learning to get a Wacom and a pen, because I would spend more time working on my images just because I enjoyed it more. So if that makes any sense, you should also try to, I think, look for this kind of tips and tricks so that you enjoy more the time that you have to spend editing anyways. So that was that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of things now, but we still have some time to go. So let's move on to the next part of the session. I think David is doing a great job at getting the questions and answers, so I'm just gonna go on and I'll review those in the end. All right, let's move on to this shoot. So this is also an editorial shoot. In this case is outdoors. And you can see that we have quite some differences in exposure and white balance. So this batch of photos is not consistent at all. So in this case, what we want to do first, before we even start applying any style, is we want to make this consistent. Because if we just apply a style without having consistent photos, then they're all just gonna end up all over the place, and that's something that we do not want. In this case, I'm actually going to be working with the styles that you can find in the store in Capture One, because those work really great, and I wanted to show you what's the logic behind them. But as I said before that, we just need to get this consistent. A great tool to do this, again, this is not particularly a style or related to styles, but I wanted to show you because I think the most powerful workflow is when you combine together the tools that make more sense. And I think in this case, it makes a lot of sense to start with this tool called Smart Adjustments. So Smart Adjustments was one of our first AI tools that was introduced, I think, over a year ago. And it's great for matching exposure and white balance in batches of photos that need to look the same, but that don't look the same at all. Little disclaimer, for this to work, you need to make sure that you are applying them on portrait shots, because if you don't, then it will basically not work. So this is basically like a skin matching technology. So there needs to be skin, there needs to be a face in the picture for this to work. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. So we have changing light conditions. Here it's much warmer, here it's much colder. Even here we have an indoor shot, which is completely different from the rest of the batch. So let's get that fixed. So how do we do that? Let's choose one of these, for example, this one. And let's just edit this one and just the exposure and the white balance. So let's make this a little bit lighter, and let's make this a little bit warmer, but also I don't really like the magenta on the skin. So making it towards the green side of things. I think that's good for today. So once that I finish my white balance and exposure adjustments, I just need to set it as a reference. And then the only thing left to do to equalize the whole batch is, again, select all the images, Command A, and just click Apply. And you can see that, voila, just in 1 second, Capture One perfectly matched the exposure and white balance of all of these shots. So let's just get rid of the panels just a second, and let's do a quick before and after. So this is before, this is how the images were just a second ago, and this is how it is now. As you can see, so much closer to one another, which is where we want to start really. So now that we have a good starting point, then we can go ahead and choose the style that we want. So in this case, as I said before, we're going to be using one of these collections from Capture One. You can find all of these at the Capture One store. You also have some built-in styles that come within the software. But some of these are really, really great. The one collection that I'll be using today is the Nordic Editorial. Let's collapse this for a second. You can see that some of these collections, they come in two modes, so to say. So we have the Advanced and we have the Standard. So let's first of all use the Standard, and then we'll cover the differences between Standard and Advanced. Okay, so let's go, we said Standard first, and let's see what's going on. So basically, as before, if we hover over the styles, we'll see like a preview of how they are applied. In this case, the one that I like to apply is Oslo One. This is a really cool style, I think. And we have different ways to do that. So if I just click on the style, it will be applied to the whole batch. And then if we go here to the Adjustments tab, you can see that all of the adjustments that were contained within that style have been put into the image layer, which is fine, but it has some disadvantages. Like, for example, if let's just move closer to this one specific picture, for example. So let's say that, okay, yeah, I like the overall look, I think this works great, but I think the color grading is a little bit overdone now that I'm looking at it closely. So it's a little bit of a pain that you have to go into each of the tools and then play around until you find out what's creating the problem. So that's not ideal. So one thing that we can do if we already applied the style and then we have this urge to like do the opacity control, but we actually can't because it's an image layer. Some little tip to fix that is you can just right click on the image layer, and there is this new option called Move Image Layer Adjustments to New Layer. So let's click on that. And actually what happened is like the image layer has been emptied and it created a new fill layer that contains all of our adjustments from the style. And now we can do the opacity control. So I think it's looking so much better, around 70%, for example. So wait a second, what if we just wanted to have this control on all of the images of the batch, and then we don't, obviously it's not ideal to have to do this step over and over again. So in that case, what we need to do is, let's just again grab everything, let's reset. And before I apply the style, I'm just going to reapply the smart adjustments because we just did the full reset. So we want to make sure again that we are starting from the right starting point. So if instead of just clicking on the style that I want to apply, I right click on it, then we get this option, apply to new layer. And that's what I'm going to do. So like this, if we go now to the adjustment, this style has been already applied to a new layer, which gives us already the opacity control, which is much more versatile and ideal. So this is the standard collection. Now, what does the advanced do? The advanced collection actually follows the same logic, but gives you even more control. So the standard is great if you just want to keep things simple, but if you want to go for control over simplicity, then I recommend you work with the advanced collection. So let's do that. Let's reset. Let's again apply the smart adjustments. And let's go back to our styles. And in this case, instead of using the standard collection, I'm going to use the advanced. So here we also have Oslo and Copenhagen. So actually we do see a difference here. So we have 25%, 50%, which is loading now, and 75%, which are subtle differences. I'm going to keep it again for 25%. And now if I just click on these, like not even need to right click or anything, I'm just clicking on this one. And I go to the adjustment panel, you see what happened is like, it didn't apply anything to the image layer, it just kept it as is. The thing that it did, which is very interesting and very good for control, is that you have, like we have split this style into different layers, which is one for contrast and one for color. The contrast, it's actually 25% already, meaning that it's not as strong as if we apply the 50 or 75%, and the color is going to always be 50%. The reason why this is a very good option is because sometimes we want to keep, it's a really good idea to keep things separate. So say, for example, this picture which contains more saturated colors, it's looking good in terms of contrast, but we may want to dial down the colors just a little bit. So we can also do 25%, for example. And then on this other image on the other side, we want to do exactly the opposite. So the whole image is more desaturated. So the colors are looking good, but there's a lot of contrast here. So we may want to dial down the contrast here a little bit, maybe to like 9 or 10 or like so really low values like that. But it does work a little like so much better. And it also gives you a lot of control over the whole of the batch. So you basically just need to go and do this quick adjustment on everything until you're satisfied with the result. But again, if we choose a whole batch, we see that it's come a long way, it's consistent, it has the same vibes, the same idea, it's looking good, good contrast, good color overall. There is room for improvement for sure, but not too bad for the time it took us to do it. So I'm satisfied with that. Okay, so another cool thing that you can do with styles, once that you have found and located your favorite styles, whether you have created them yourselves or you have bought them from captureone.com, is you can actually assign keyboard shortcuts to styles, which is very useful for workflow speed. So let's go for a second again to our keyboard shortcuts manager. So here on top, remember edit keyboard shortcuts. And here next to the speed edit keys on the right, we have the custom shortcuts. So here we have different options. So we can apply styles, we can use them for style browsers as well. Or we can also assign them to the operations to open with or edit with or set a crop aspect ratio. So in this case, by default, it came as another style. But what I did is that you can change it at any given point. So for example, if I wanted like a black and white style, I could do it at any time. But in this case, I saved the command 1 key, the shortcut key command 1 to apply this Oslo 25% style, which I really like. Then, for example, a black and white style would be command 3. So it's a great option to have, say that I really like this style and I want to apply it to a whole different batch of photos. So let's go to the library and let's go fetch a different batch of photos. So let's go for this one, for example. Again, I'm just going to make sure for a starting point that I am doing the smart adjustments first, just to make sure that things are looking good and consistent before doing that. So setting that as a reference, selecting everything and applying. And that's going to give me the consistency that I need to start working from. And well, everything's already applied. So if I want to use my shortcut, remember it was command 1. The only thing I need to do is do command 1 on my keyboard. And that's going to apply the style. And because I assigned it to the advanced style, you can actually see here that the layers were created and say, for example, let's go to this one, for example, and see, okay, maybe we don't want to have as much contrast on this one because there's a lot of white from the wedding dress. So again, the flexibility to be able to work with these, or maybe let's just clone this variant and let's just go for a black and white style, which was command 3. And that's going to give you your preferred style instantly. Super easy to change from the keyboard shortcut manager. And that's a great way to work if you already have your preferred styles that you want to work with. Okay, we've covered a bunch of stuff, but there is just one last thing that I wanted to cover, and that's one for the landscapists out there. We've been working with portraits a lot today, but I also wanted to make it a little bit more varied. So let's move on to one little trick that you can do with portraits when you combine styles with a really nice feature that is also, like, I think very unknown and underrated in Capture One, which is the Lumar range selection. Let's move on here. So I have this landscape here. This is what I'm going to use for the demo now. So the first thing I want to do, because it's like so dull, I'm just going to lift up the exposure a bit, just like half a stop, so that we have a better starting point. But that's the only thing that I'm going to be doing, really. Okay, so one thing that I learned a while ago that you can do is that you can apply styles to layers. Yes, you can do that, obviously. But what if you apply them to a Lumar range mask? So let's first of all cover what's a Lumar range mask, because I don't want to assume that everybody knows that. So let's just start by creating a new Lumar range mask. Basically, it's a luminosity mask that will mask out parts of the image according to the luminosity values. So to do that, first we need to create a new filled adjustment layer. Note the filled part. It's really important that you start from a filled layer because the Lumar range tool modifies a pre-existing mask. So you always got to make sure when you're working with this tool to do the new fill adjustment layer. Now that means that you already have a mask, and this is where you have to start from. Now that I have my mask, next to the refinement that we used before, note that there is a Lumar range button. So I'm choosing that, and it opens up this panel, which basically roughly represents a histogram. And I'm just going to make sure that I adapt this histogram to just mask out the darker parts of the image, so like midtones and shadows. So let's do it like something like that. Now if I play around with the fall off, it's going to give me a softer mask, which is going to come in handy in this case. And also increasing the radius will give us a softer fall off, which is nice here. Okay, so that's my Lumar range mask. So that's it. Now it's everything masked away. And now what I can do is, let's go to the styles. And here we have the styles. So I made a different one for the shadows and a different one for the sky, because I just want to apply different set of tools to the sky and the foreground, and this is how I did it. So the only thing that interests me from this style is actually the shadows. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to apply to selected layer. I already know that my selected layer is the Lumar mask that covers only the shadows. So that's what I'm doing here. So, oops, sorry. Just showing you the mask. So this style has been applied to this mask, which did what you can see here without affecting the sky. So now the second part would be just applying the style to the sky. So we could start, maybe let's just name it, so keep things tidy. Now, maybe you want to start with the Lumar mask and then apply the style on it, or you can also do it the other way around. Let's just do it the other way around now. So I'm going to my styles panel. I'm going to choose landscape sky warm and then right click, and in this case, apply to new layer. Again, you can choose to do this however you want. So let's just do sky here. Now, obviously, the whole foreground is looking crazy right now, but it's going to be solved now when I do the other Lumar range selection. So clicking on Lumar range again on this other layer, and in this case, I'm going to do the opposite thing. I'm just going to mask out the highlights. Also note how nicely it's taking the reflection on the water. I think that's great actually, because what would happen if we wouldn't have the reflection inside the photo is like we would have a different color grading for the sky and a different color grading for the reflection of the sky, which visually doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, if you see a reflection on a pond, you expect to see sort of the same thing from the original and the thing that's being reflected, right? So I'm going to keep it like that, and I'm going to increase the radius just a little bit more, just so that we have a good thing going on. Okay, so now we click apply, and what happened is that now we have a different style for the sky and the reflection obviously, and a different style for the foreground, which talk to each other really nicely. Like this one I made ad hoc, but you could easily apply this to any other images. Just make sure to follow our recommendations for styles so that you make them as versatile as possible. Okay, so great. I think that David's answered all the questions. Like this is actually all for my presentation today. I'm just gonna give like some seconds in case something else shows up. Well, hope you are enjoying the session so far. It's been really fun. Yeah, just giving it some time until some questions pop up. Meanwhile, some things that I wanted to mention definitely was the new streams coming up for December. So you can see here in our Learning Hub, we always list all of our live streams here. So this one on the left is the one that we are having today. Coming up next week, we have on December 14th, one about skin tones or color grading with our collaborator, Zoe Noble, a great photographer. And then December 21st, last of the month, and actually of 2023, we will have David Grover back on the channel again for teaching us, how to fix bad lighting problems. So ideally, our light would always be perfect on all of our shots, but we know that that's unfortunately not always the case. So he's gonna give us some guidelines on how to fix that thing once that the inevitable happens. Great, I don't think we actually have anything else coming up, so I just wanted to remind you to subscribe to our channel. We have webinars mostly every week, almost every week, in any case very regularly, and we are always super happy to have you here. We hope to be able to keep helping you learn more and make the most out of your Capture One. We always appreciate you joining. And again, thanks for joining today. Thank you, David, for helping with the chat. You did a tremendous job as always, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.